Knicks fans, stop scrolling. What I'm about to reveal could completely flip your expectations for free agency and reshape this entire roster. We're not talking about the flashy names, we're talking about impact. There are two veteran sharpshooters, yes, two, who could be absolute game changers for New York, and no one's paying attention. If the Knicks land even one of them, it could be the missing piece that pushes this team straight into the Eastern Conference Finals conversation. But there's a twist. It might already be in motion behind the scene. So stay locked in, don't blink, because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly why this offseason might go down as one of the smartest in Knicks history. And hey, if you want the Knicks to make the right moves this summer, smash that like button right now to support the channel and help us keep dropping daily Knicks content for fans like you. This is exactly the kind of move the New York Knicks have been waiting for. Reports have confirmed that the team is actively eyeing several targets that directly address one of their biggest roster gaps. If this team is serious about making a run at the NBA Finals, especially with the Eastern Conference wide open like we haven't seen in over 2 decades, then this offseason could be their most critical one yet. We've got a lot to break down today, especially with some major changes brewing within the Knicks structure. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Chris, and we're diving straight into all the latest. If you're part of the massive 70% of viewers still watching but not subscribed, I have to ask, what are you waiting for? This channel brings you daily Knicks content, everything from coaching updates and free agency rumors to trade speculation and in-depth analysis, all wrapped up with the best weekly live shows on YouTube. Every Friday, I'm live alongside my co-host Matt Long, who you may know from Jets Digest 2. But enough about us. Let's get to the Knicks. The real question on everyone's mind right now is, what is Leon Rose planning during this crucial free agency window? Chances are, if you saw those 2 names pop up on the screen just now, you're wondering if they're real difference makers. Let me be honest. One of them could move the needle in a big way. The other, maybe not so much. But let's not get distracted. The bigger picture here is clear. We all know what this team has to do. The Knicks came within 2 wins of the NBA Finals, and yes, I'll admit it, I fully expected them to handle Indiana without much trouble. I thought it was a done deal. I honestly believed they would steamroll the Pacers. I expected OKC to do the same. And while Indiana deserves credit for their toughness, the truth is, the Knicks were closer to a championship than people realize. And what's the key difference between the Knicks and those other elite squads like the Thunder and Pacers? Depth, bench production. It's no coincidence that the teams still playing deep into the playoffs all had deep, versatile second units. This is where the Knicks need to take a hard look at their roster. It's time to prioritize the bench. Some fans have argued, well, maybe the bench wasn't bad, they just didn't play. And while I get the logic, I've got to be honest. The bench wasn't terrible, but it definitely wasn't good enough. If you compare the Knicks' reserves to those of Indiana, OKC, or even Minnesota, the difference is obvious. Every team that made it to the conference finals had more reliable depth than New York. That's why these new player links are so intriguing, because they aren't just rumors. They could actually shift the outlook of the entire roster. One of the more interesting names that surfaced? Ty Jerome. According to James Edwards, he's someone to watch closely. Edwards pointed out that teams with more cap flexibility than New York might have the edge in signing him, as his value likely falls somewhere between the taxpayer and non-taxpayer mid-level exception. But make no mistake, Jerome has put himself on the radar after a breakout season with the Cleveland Cavaliers. He quietly became one of the league's top-performing reserves. Last year, he posted 12 points per game while connecting on a remarkable 43.9% from beyond the arc. And it's not just the scoring. He can initiate the offense, make plays for others, and provide versatility in the backcourt. Ty Jerome quietly put together one of the most efficient seasons among bench guards in the league last year. He averaged 12.5 points, 2.5 rebounds, and 3.5 assists per game, added more than a steal per contest, and posted some eye-popping shooting splits, hitting 51.6% from the floor, 44% from beyond the arc, and a scorching 46% on corner 3. Yes, The numbers are slightly rounded up, but let's be honest, they speak for themselves. If the Knicks were to land Jerome on a team-friendly deal this offseason, it would be a massive win. No exaggeration, fans would likely explode with excitement. And rightly so. Ty Jerome deserved serious consideration for Most Improved Player last year. It's honestly frustrating how that award keeps going to top draft picks who simply developed as expected. No shade to stars like Ja Morant or Cade Cunningham, but come on, that's not really what Most Improved is supposed to celebrate. Those guys were always projected to become all-star. Meanwhile, Jerome was fighting to stay in the league. He came out of Virginia with solid credentials, sure, but his early years in the NBA saw limited minutes and inconsistent role. For a while, he was just trying to find his place. Then came Cleveland, and everything clicked. With the Cavaliers, Jerome not only earned consistent playing time, he thrived. He became one of the most reliable reserve guards in the entire Eastern Conference. He ran the offense smoothly, knocked down threes at a high clip, and showed he could step up when needed. There was even some chatter that he could step in as a starter if Cleveland decided to move on from Darius Garland. And if they didn't get a guard in return, that wasn't out of the question. But now it's clear, Ty Jerome's time in Cleveland is over. He's heading into free agency, and he's not expected to return to the Cavs. Their payroll is loaded with major contracts. Garland, Donovan Mitchell, Jarrett Allen, and DeAndre Hunter are all on big deal. Max Strus got paid. Evan Mobley's extension is about to kick in. Even Sam Merrill just re-upped for a longer stay. That cap space is gone. And while Isaac Okoro was recently shipped to Chicago for Lonzo Ball, who carries a similar $10 million salary, the Cavaliers' books are still packed. Add in guys like Dean Wade on value deals, and the conclusion becomes obvious. There's simply no financial room left for Ty Jerome. He's heading to the open market, and the question now is where he fits. It's important to remember that very few teams are flush with cap space this summer. One team that is in a flexible position? The Brooklyn Nets. And they're taking on bad contracts in exchange for draft assets as they rebuild. But for Jerome, the ceiling in terms of contract value will likely be a mid-level exception, and even that might be a stretch. Teams operating above the first tax apron can only offer around $5.7 million via the taxpayer mid-level exception, which, coincidentally, is the exact amount the Knicks could offer. So what does this mean? In a tight market, Jerome could find himself having to accept a one-year prove-it deal at a reduced price. That's the kind of situation that savvy front offices, like New York's, should be ready to pounce on. If they play this right, the Knicks could end up with one of the biggest bargains of the offseason. Ty Jerome might once again find himself in a frustrating situation, forced to take a short-term, under-market deal just to prove that he's worth more, even though he's already shown it. It's not about his talent, it's about timing. Unfortunately for him, this free agency class is just poorly timed. There's not much money going around, and although Jerome probably deserves a decent contract, circumstances might hold him back. The silver lining? This opens a surprising window for a team like the New York Knicks. Looking ahead to next offseason, over a dozen teams are expected to have significant cap space. But right now, it's a completely different story. The only team with real financial flexibility today is the Brooklyn Nets, and they're rebuilding, not looking for veteran contributors like Jerome. That means the Knicks, even without much cap space themselves, are in a better position than most would expect when it comes to targeting someone like Ty. It's not a sure thing by any means, but the odds are far better than they normally would be. That's the key. According to Brian Windhorst, the Cavaliers are preparing to cross into second-apron tax territory, and they're already wrestling with tough roster decisions. With Sam Merrill recently signing an extension, it seems the front office has made their pick, and Jerome is the odd man out. Merrill posted modest numbers last season, just over 7 points per game, while hitting 37% from three and 40% from the field overall. Cleveland sees him more as a wing, and that apparently influenced their decision. But let's be honest, letting go of Jerome in favor of Merrill is a questionable move. Still, Cleveland has too many guards now, especially with the recent acquisition of Lonzo Ball. So, from a roster balance perspective, the writing is on the wall. Even with the qualifying offers being handled and some cap maneuvering, it's likely the Cavaliers will end up exceeding the second apron by the end of the offseason. That leaves no room for Jerome, and he's being pushed into free agency. This is where the Knicks should be paying close attention. New York might be able to swoop in and land Jerome on a team-friendly deal, and that would be a smart piece of business. Personally, I'd love to see it happen. Side note, fun fact, I was briefly in the same NBA 2K league as Ty Jerome before I got dropped for inactivity. I was too wrapped up in making content to stay active. Still, it was a cool moment. Now, setting the nostalgia aside, the Knicks aren't limited to just one option. Another name worth watching is Seth Curry. According to James Edwards, the list of viable free agent targets isn't long, and Curry stands out. He's a career 43% shooter from deep and actually led the league last season with a blistering 45.6% from three. But you'd be forgiven for missing that detail. He spent the year on the struggling Charlotte Hornets, far away from the spotlight. Curry has always been a dependable scorer, and his playoff numbers back that up. Across multiple postseason appearances, he's averaged 11, 6 points, 2 rebounds, and 1.5 assists per game. His efficiency remains elite, 52% shooting overall and 46% from downtown. That's exactly the kind of player the Knicks need right now, a proven perimeter threat who can knock down shots consistently. It's why I'd prefer Curry over bringing back someone like Landry Shamet. Nothing against Shamet, but Curry's shooting pedigree is just at another level. In a summer where New York needs to make smart, strategic moves, targeting a specialist like Curry could make a big difference, especially for a team aiming to boost their offense without breaking the bank. Let's rewind to that same draft class that featured Kobe Bryant, a player who's flown under the radar, and think about what the Knicks really need. They didn't land a lights-out shooter in that class, so the solution now is simple. Go out and sign someone who can stretch the floor and consistently knock down shots from deep. Enter Seth Curry. He's coming off 2 consecutive seasons with the Charlotte Hornets, a franchise that holds personal ties to the Curry family legacy. Del Curry, Seth's father, spent a chunk of his career in Charlotte, but even with the sentimental value, it's unlikely Seth wraps up his playing days there. The reality is, with the way he's shooting the ball, several playoff-caliber teams will have their eyes on him. That's exactly why the Knicks need to act fast. They should offer him a veteran minimum contract the second free agency opens. No overthinking, no hesitation. Just go out and sign one of the most accurate shooters in the league. Defense isn't the priority here, not in this case. What the Knicks need is a sniper from beyond the arc, and Seth Curry checks every box. Adding him would be a no-brainer. Consider this, Seth Curry has already logged over a decade in the NBA, and it's almost wild to think he's been around this long. But what's even more impressive is that, in his 11th year, he topped the league in three-point shooting percentage for the very first time. He's always been elite from distance. That hasn't changed. His career mark? A phenomenal 43.3% from three. That's the kind of consistency the Knicks are lacking. Personally, I've been hoping to see Curry in a Knicks jersey ever since the team entered the playoff conversation. He's a perfect complementary piece. Not a star, but the kind of role player who can completely change the dynamic of a second unit. A specialist who forces defenses to adjust. And while we're talking shooter, don't forget Ty Jerome. He also boasts top-tier efficiency from deep. In fact, if given the choice, I'd target Jerome with the mid-level exception, and then use veteran minimum deals to shore up depth at forward. The talent pool isn't deep in this free agency class, especially when it comes to wing, but that's just how it is. You work with what's available. At the end of the day, adding Curry would be a strong move by New York. It's a low-cost, high-upside option, the kind of signing that helps stretch the floor, improves spacing for Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle, and gives the bench a weapon it currently lacks. But hey, enough from me. I want to hear what you think. Drop your thoughts in the comments section. Would you go after Curry, Jerome, or someone else entirely? If you enjoyed the breakdown, hit that like button. Make sure you're subscribed And don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a Knicks update.